Okay, great. All right, guys. Well, this is the title of our fantastic little presentation today. It's called Welcome to the Anatomy of a Successful Web Series, or How the Revolution is Being Digitized. I want to jump right in with a video, if we could, Christian, if we can cut away to the first video, which is will give us a sort of set the tone, give an example of some of the things we'll be talking about today.
Great, let's do that. And here we go.
That was a web series pilot for a series called Red versus Blue that probably aired about 2009, I want to say, something along those lines. It's been in existence since then. They've done, I think they're up to about 10 seasons at this point. If you guys will notice, a couple things I want to point out and for you guys to make a mental note about that video. The first thing is to make a mental note of who you think the target audience is. And I will be bringing up that point a few times with all of the videos that we see today. And it's a very important point because if we walk away with 2 or 3 takeaways from this session, that's one of the most important things, is identifying who your target audience is. And if you guys were in a live room, I'd go around the room right now and ask you guys who you thought that was, and I'd get a bunch of answers, and most likely one of 2 of you or many of you would come up with the answer that the target audience for that video is gamers, video gamers, specifically people who play Halo. So basically that is a screen capture of a clip from the video game Halo, in which the dialogue has been recorded over to create a brand new narrative. So the creators of that piece of content did not create it themselves. They grabbed it directly from the video game and just re-recorded the audio, the dialogue, in order to create a new narrative. That's called that's what's called a machinima. And it's a technique by which you take existing content and create a new narrative. Anyway. That being said, that was created by a production company called ROOSTERTEETH. And if you see on the screen right now, what you'll see is a little graphic of ROOSTERTEETH that we took from YouTube. And basically, also what I want to point out is the total number of views that they had. That they had in 2012. They had 770.5 thousand views. So that's 770,000 views. And for the year of 2012, on the low end earnings, they earned approximately 577,000. I'm sorry, that was 770 million views. And on the low end, they earned $577,000 for their series in the year of 2012. On the high end, they earned approximately 5.4 million. Now, this is a range of their earnings. No one knows exactly how much they earned on YouTube that year. This is an approximation, and I'll tell you how we come about this approximation and how we project that they earned this much money. That sounds like a lot of money for a piece of content that they didn't actually create themselves, but it's a very highly successful show, and we'll go into reasons why in a moment. But before we do that, I want to talk about how they reached that $5.4 million, because it sounds pretty incredible and unrealistic, but it is actually, I assure you, very realistic, and there are many people on YouTube. Not everyone, but the top earners, the top 10% of YouTubers do earn, money as high up as millions and millions of dollars per year. And I'm going to tell you how to do that today. So it's all based on this thing that YouTube launched a few years ago called the YouTube Partnership Program. And what it basically does, it pays qualified YouTube creators for running ads against their videos. So when you're watching a video and you'll see an advertisement before the video starts, or you'll see an advertisement in the lower third while the video is being played, that is actual advertisement. That is actual advertisement that real advertisers pay YouTube to play advertisements against their creators' content. And the metric that's most important to us, the metric that we want to pay attention here to, and the one that creates all of that revenue for those creators, is called the CPM, which is an acronym for cost per mil, which is Latin for 1,000. So the idea is that for every 1,000 views that a piece of content gets, YouTube will pay the YouTube creator of that content a certain amount of money for every 1,000 views. And I'll get into a little bit more specifically how that happened for Rooster Teeth in the next couple of slides. Just a little bit of background on the YouTube Partnership Program. It was created in 2007, and it started with more than 1 million creators from over 30 countries around the world. And many of them are earning money from YouTube right now. A lot of them, thousands of those channels are making 6 figures a year, easily earning hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. Some of them, a small handful of them, and some of them that we will look at today, are earning in the millions. So going back to Rooster Teeth, this is how it works. Okay, so if they amassed 770.5 million views over the year, if you take that and divide it by 1,000, which is the metric of the CPM, right? Remember, it's cost per 1,000 views, and you times it by a CPM value. On the low end, at the very minimum, YouTube pays about 75 cents per 1,000 views. So at the very minimum for that year, if you do the math, 770.5 million divided by 1,000 times 75 cents gives you $577,875 a year. So that's how we get this number, 577.8 thousand. On the high end, potentially doing the same math but plugging in a $7 CPM gives us the $5.4 million. So here's the thing, no one really knows, they don't publish exactly what each creator is getting, but this is the range. On the low end, the very minimum is 0.75. On the high end, the very high end is $7. So that gives us this range. Hopefully you guys, so basically, I mean, let's move on, because that's basically the CPM range, and hopefully, I wish maybe at the end, if that's not clear, I'll go back and explain this math. And actually, we'll be showing a few more examples of how this math works in the next couple slides. So let's visit the YouTube page for Rooster Teeth. And so this is YouTube. This is the Rooster Teeth about page, right? Sorry, guys. Okay, so here's the Rooster Teeth channel, right? This is their channel with their branding, and there's a trailer video that comes up, and below that, they've got all the different shows that they now make. Here's Red versus Blue, the series that we just watched, but Rooster Teeth has actually grown its business to include a vast amount, or a great many shows, a whole slate of shows that cater to the same target audience. And if we were in a room, I would ask you guys again what you thought the target audience is. And if you were to say gamers, video game players, you would be correct. So they're generating income not just on that one show, but a great many shows now, all catering to the same audience. And if you go to their About page, you'll see their schedule, their release schedule of all the things that they're showing during the course of the week. But at the very bottom, you'll see a very interesting set of numbers. And this right here is the total number of views that they have amassed since launching their channel in 2006. So at this point, they're at 3.4 billion views. That's billion with a B, views, right? So that's a very interesting number. So let's go back to our math. And if you plug in that math, and we start at 3.4 billion views divided by 1,000 times a 75-cent CPM, we'll have amassed a total earnings of $2.5 million since starting their channel in 2006. That's the low end. On the high end, they potentially have earned $25 million. Again, no one knows the exact amount that they earned because no one knows what their CPM is, right? At the very minimum, they're getting paid 75 cents per CPM, or they could be as high as $7. There are some people, some channels that earn even more than that, depending on their reach and their celebrity status and the amount of subscribers they have. But this is a very acceptable range for us to extrapolate on. So somewhere between $2.5 million and $25 million lies the truth. No one really knows. But the point is that they are making a healthy profit on the content that they're creating on their channel, which started with a series that wasn't content that they created themselves. Very interesting business model. But I will say one thing. They were very smart about creating content and a whole channel catering to that particular target audience, video gamers, because video gamers is one of the highest, most actionable, and most proliferating group on the internet, and specifically with YouTube. So they made a really good choice about choosing their target audience. So moving on. Here are some interesting stats about YouTube. For every second, 1 hour of video is uploaded on YouTube. That's 24 hours of video every 24 seconds, and a decade's worth of video every single day. A century's worth of video every 10 days, and YouTube reports that there are 4 billion global views per day all over the world. In fact, that's 120 billion views per month. And in fact, that was actually from 2012. These are actually old stats. The current stats that we looked up recently that YouTube publishes is that they upload about 100 hours of video every minute with over 6 billion hours of video viewed every month. 80% of their traffic comes from outside of the US, interestingly enough, and it's localized in 61 countries across 61 languages. According to Nielsen, YouTube reaches more adults ages 18 to 34 than any cable network. That is staggering information when you put things in perspective. Over 6 billion hours of video viewed every day. Let me give you some more stats that will actually put that into some relative perspective for you. That 6 billion hours of video every day equals 360 billion minutes of video watched every day, or 684,463 years of video watched every day, or 48,000 round trips to Mars, or 60 minutes of video for each person on the planet Earth every single day, or 2,975,206,611 viewings of Star Wars: A New Hope for all you geeks that are out there, including myself. There's more video uploaded to YouTube in a month than the 3 major US networks have created in 60 years of television. That is incredible. Not only incredible, it's revolutionary. So what does this all mean? I mean, this is an incredible phenomenon that's happening on the web these days, and it's unprecedented. There has never been a media phenomenon as robust and fast-growing as online video is in general, but YouTube specifically. And it also means that YouTube and digital media are in general the fastest growing media platforms in human history. It's unprecedented, and the little man or the little woman stands to make a lot of money from it if you know how. And there are lots of people out there on the internet and in YouTube in particular making a lot of money. And Rooster Teeth is just one of at least thousands that are making hundreds of thousands, if not millions. And there is a strategy to this. It's not easy. There's no foolproof method, but it is possible if you have the right concept and the right strategy. And that's what we're going to talk about today. Having the right concept and having the right strategy. You should write these two things down if you have a pencil and paper. Those are two key takeaways that we're going to discuss today that are very important to the idea of being successful on YouTube. So what do we mean by strategy? Okay, so let's break it down. A, know your goals. While you're devising a show concept, an idea for the web that you want to execute, something that you think you want to put out there and put your hard-earned money into, your hard blood, sweat, and tears into, you should know your goals. What are your goals? What is it that you want to achieve with this particular project? And some of those goals can be, I want to make a lot of money. I want to at least sustain myself so I can continue to make this show in perpetuity. Or is your goal to make a splash for yourself and have a calling card so that you get into rooms in Hollywood to pitch your ideas for bigger and better projects? Is it to be famous on the internet? Those are all different goals, and depending on how you devise your show and how you pick your target audience, depending on how you construct this idea and construct your strategy, it will support different kinds of goals. Different goals are supported by different plans, and so it's very important to understand what it is that you're trying to get. So this whole slide that we're going to go through today is also very important. You should all write this stuff down. And knowing your goals also involves identifying a target audience, right? So we talked about gamers and how Rooster Teeth built a whole franchise and a whole business model based on video gamers. And it was a very smart decision because they knew or they suspected at the time, it was very early in the days of the video internet on the video on the internet and YouTube, but they lucked out. They understood the response they were getting while they were doing the show, and they grew on that response based on the fact that their audience was very, very highly engageable. And so it's very important to understand who your target audience is. And your target audience doesn't have to be gamers. It just has to be a community out there that you know exists, that you know is starving for content that you can engage with. Like examples of that can be young adults, young girls that like young adult content, for example, young women who like to watch things like The Vampire Diaries or read books like Jane Austen or I'm drawing a blank right now, but many of the things that are out there, like that are published by companies for young adults, young women. Another great target audience is foodies, people who are interested in cooking or going to restaurants. Another good one would be sports. Another good one might be people who bowl. The point is that, or fly fishing. The point is that these communities exist out in the world on the internet, and if you can identify a target audience that you can that you can galvanize, then you're already ahead of the game in a really large way. So one of the things you need to do is do research on the internet and find out who these target audiences are and create a show based on those interests. Okay, so if you have questions on that, let's hold on to them until the end, and we'll definitely go back and address them. Um, Another very important thing is to be prepared to create content on a very consistent level, on a very consistent schedule. Excuse me. Weekly would be ideal, if not daily, for that audience. Yes, a lot of you are saying, "Oh my God, I create content every single day." That's going to be impossible. Yes, it's very difficult. It's very challenging, but it's not impossible. There are content creators on YouTube that create content every single day, but they started out with something very easy to manage, like a vlog, as opposed to scripted narrative, right? I don't know if you guys. I'll give some examples of what a vlog is later on, but basically a vlog is, a content creator talking directly to the camera about a particular subject matter, right? You could do those easily in your bedroom. What I'm doing with you guys right now is essentially a live vlog, right? I'm talking, it's just me in front of a camera. You saw me on camera earlier, and I'm giving you a presentation. And I could do this every day if I wanted to, and publish content. And it's very cheap and easy to do. So there are a lot of vloggers out there that are making a lot of money. But if you wanted to do something that was scripted, like a show that resembled Breaking Bad or Mad Men or The Walking Dead, and put that online, that would be a little bit more challenging to do because it would be expensive and labor intensive. But that kind of show would support a different kind of goal. And we will definitely talk about that, if not today, definitely in part 2 of why and how different kinds of shows will support different kinds of goals. But my point is here with this bullet is to say that creating content on a regular basis, on a regular schedule, creates loyalty with your audience. And you want to put your content on some kind of schedule. And if you're doing a vlog, you could do one every day. But if you're doing scripted narrative, you might only be able to do 10 episodes every 6 months or 10 episodes a year. But if you put that stuff out on a consistent level, a consistent schedule, you'll find that builds a certain kind of loyalty. Okay, next point. So creating content for a particular audience is very important that you engage that audience through social media. Now, people don't realize this, but YouTube is a social media platform. There are many ways to communicate with your audience and share things and respond to comments and to embed those videos into things like Twitter and to embed those things into platforms like Facebook. So it's very important that once you identify who your target audience is, that you start engaging them right away, early in the process. Before you even start shooting anything, you should be doing the research and setting up social media destinations in order to build an audience so that when you finally launch your show, will have been already communicating with them for several months and feeding them little tidbits, maybe from set, or maybe an interview with some of your stars or your cast, things like that. So you want to start engaging your audience at a very early stage, even before the show launches, way before. And this might be an obvious thing, but it's a very good idea to keep costs way down because you want to be in this for the long haul. I don't think if at all, any examples of web series content or series that have been successful just based on a handful of episodes. You really want to create, ideally, if you're doing a vlog, hundreds of episodes, or if you're doing some kind of scripted narrative, hopefully a dozen episodes per season. And the way you're going to be able to continue doing that is to keep your costs way down. So it's very important. And lastly, it's very important to be bold, fresh, and unique. Be audacious. There is a lot of noise out on the internet. We saw some of the slides in some of the slides earlier where we talked about how much content is being put up on the web, right? It's like in a day or a month, I think what the number was, there's more content uploaded than the 60 years of the entire history of the major network television stations. So how do you break through that noise? Partly by identifying a target audience that you can market your show to and have a conversation with. about your show and get them excited about your show. That's partly it, engagement, but it's also standing out, right? Being fresh, doing something no one's done before. So do your homework, find out who else is out there making a show in your space, and up the ante. That's always going to work in your favor. It will never backfire on you. Okay. And as I was saying earlier, prepare for the long haul. That's what I'm talking about, keeping your costs way down. You know, making a successful web series is a commitment of, you know, several, if not several months, definitely several years. It depends on what your goals are, but you don't just want to slap up content and hope that it gets lots of traffic. You really have to love your project, work with your project, work to engage your audience, put out content over long periods of time, put out as much content as possible, and build an audience around that content. It's definitely a commitment. No one's ever put up 3 episodes and walked away from those 3 episodes and been successful. So it's definitely a commitment. It's something that you want to do over several years. Think about what the major networks do, right? The major networks, they don't put up 1 or 2 episodes of a show and then walk away unless they get canceled. It's at the very minimum, it's usually a 12 episode commitment per season. You know, that's what the cable shows do, and the network shows do 22 episodes per season, and hopefully, if the show is successful, it goes on for many years. So think about that commitment, and think about that commitment for your own show. That's basically the kind of effort that it's going to take to build your audience and to be successful. But if you plan it right and you pace yourself and you do smart things to raise funds, you can do this. You can sustain your show for many years. And in fact, if you have the right strategy, you can bring in enough revenue from the show to continue to do it for several years. So, all right, moving on. All right, so that was part 1 of part 1. Let's go to part 2 of part 1. Sorry. And this area of today's presentation is called developing your show concept. So what goes into picking the idea and developing it such that it is got inherent levers in it and mechanisms in it such that it could be a successful show on the YouTube platform specifically. Again, I'm going to ask you to ask yourself what your goal is. This is very important. And the reason why it's important is because you're going to create, if you want to make money the way the guys at Rooster Teeth made money, you're going to design a very specific type of show that you can create a lot of very cheaply, right? Because the idea behind making money on the web with YouTube is a lot of volume and audience engagement, right? So if you're going to make money on YouTube, or if that's your goal, then you're going to want to make a lot of this content, hundreds of episodes if you can. But if your goal is to become, to get on Hollywood's map and come to Hollywood and become a showrunner for television, for traditional television, you're not going to want to make a vlog. You're going to want to make a scripted narrative series as best as you can, and you probably won't be able to make 100 episodes. You'll probably be making more in the area of half a dozen episodes or 12 episodes per season, because those kinds of shows are much, much more expensive. But you choose what kind of show you're going to make depending on the goal that you want to achieve. And there are many different variations between, those are the two extremes, a vlog on one end and a scripted narrative on the other end. And there are a lot of flavors in between. And we'll get into some of that today and definitely next week. But choosing your goal is very important, and please write that down. That's one of the key takeaways from this session that you should be asking yourself is, what is my goal? And again, we talked about this question earlier. Who is my target audience? Are they foodie? Are they foodies? Are they young adult is it the young adult audience? Are they sports aficionados? Are they are they women? Are they men? Are they fitness fanatics? Are they part of the LGBT community? Are they into music? Are they fans of hip hop? Are they fans of a particular artist in hip hop? Are they fans of a particular game? Like the guys at Rooster Teeth made that Red versus Blue, and that was a big hit, not only with gamers but specifically with people who play Halo. So understanding who you're making the show for and where they live online, like where are the bloggers that blog about Halo? Where are the Twitter feeds that tweet about Halo? Where are the websites that do reviews about Halo? Where are the Facebook groups that have amassed to talk about Halo, the game Halo? So if I was creating Red versus Blue, and if I was Rooster Teeth in 2014, that's what I would be doing, identifying who my target audience is and trying to figure out where they live online and figuring out how to reach that audience. And I sort of just kind of gave you some of the tips. It's like finding out where those bloggers are, finding out where those Twitter feeds are, finding where those Facebook groups are, and becoming part of that community, such that you're having conversations with that community. And it's not just about your show; it's just having real conversations, real social media. That's the secret sauce of social media. It's not a one-way conversation. It's not a one-way monologue. You're not just pumping stuff out to your audience. You're having a dialogue with them, and that dialogue will include things that have nothing to do with your show. But that's a real conversation. So that's the thing that you need to be understanding about a successful show, is that as you build your audience, you're just not pumping your show out to them. You're actually having a dialogue with them. So getting back to potential goals, here are a couple of different goals and yours might be on this list or it might not be on this list, but these are some that I came up with that I like to ask people if whether or not this is true for them. Is your goal to make money? Is your goal to get your show to traditional or another show to traditional television? Is it to make a living on the internet? Is it to be famous? Is it to be famous on the internet? Because those are two slightly different things. Is it to have a calling card for your work so that you can take as a representation of your skill set and show that to producers and decision makers in Hollywood? These are all different goals, and depending on what kind of show you choose, what kind of format, and who your target audience is, different target audiences and different kinds of shows will support different goals. So it's very important to ask yourself this question and have a good answer for this before you get started. Christian, we're ready to play the second video. Can you hear me?
Yep, I got you.
All right, thanks, Christian, for that. So hopefully you guys were able to see that without too much trouble. It was a little choppy for me, but I hope that you guys were able to see it a little bit more smoothly. Anyway, that is the pilot episode of a series called The Guild. The Guild has been around since about 2009. It was created by Felicia, who has been pretty much the poster child for scripted narrative web series since she started the Guild back in 2009, and she's done some really interesting things. And I want to talk about her as a case study for a successful web series creator. But before we do that, I want to ask you guys, what does this last video have in common with the first video? And many of you are probably saying to yourselves, well, it was about video games. And yes, that's true. So what it had in common with the first video was that it was also targeted for the same target audience, video games. And there's a really good reason for that. We've already said it. It's that they're out in droves in the millions on the internet. they're out there playing games, they're out there watching videos on YouTube. So they're a very, very, very highly actionable target audience. And much like the way Rooster Teeth created a cottage industry for themselves based on that audience, we're going to see that Felicia Day, the star and the writer of the Guild that we just watched, also did for herself. So let's go through a little bit of her information. So that's Felicia Day. We just saw her in the video. That's her receiving her first Streamy Award back in 2010, I believe it was. And some of Felicia Day's milestones are the 2007. I said 2009 earlier, but it was 2007 is when the Guild premieres. Currently on season 7, and the show is now available on YouTube, on DVD, Amazon, Netflix, Hulu, the MSN Network, Xbox 360, and Zune. I don't know if Zune's still around anymore, but it was on Zune when it was around. And it was inspired by our own love and quasi addiction to online gaming, much like the character in the show that she plays. Previous to that, she had a brief stint on the show Buffy the Vampire Slayer. I don't know if we have any Buffy fans out there, but there was a season where there was this storyline that involved the fact that they needed to replace the Slayer, that there was going to be a new Slayer, and there were several potential Slayers that were in the show that were going to be chosen as the next Slayer, and Felicia Day played one of those. So that was her previous acting experience. Previous to being on Buffy, actually, I want to roll back for a second. So one of the important things to know about Felicia Day is that when she had left Buffy the Vampire Slayer, she had written the Guild as a pilot, as a television pilot that she tried to get sold to traditional television, and she took a bunch of meetings and got a bunch of passes, and no one would take her up on this concept. So she decided at that point that she was going to break up the half-hour pilot that she had written and do it online instead of traditional television, and that's what became the Guild. And the other thing that we should know is that she very literally during that time she couldn't, after having left Buffy, she couldn't get any work. She was an out-of-work actress trying to sell a pilot that no one would buy and no one would hire her. So those are important notes to take away. And there's a payoff to that in a second. We'll get to that. So in 2008, she signs a deal with Microsoft to sponsor the next 4 seasons of the Guild. So that after that, she didn't have to have a day job. Her day job was creating the Guild, courtesy of Microsoft. Her cast and crew were now paid for that period of time, which was a 2 or 3 year period. And since then, her acting career, funnily enough, coincidentally, had taken off. She had then since been had appearances on House, Dollhouse. She became a series regular on Eureka, and she was also on the sci-fi movie Red the Werewolf Hunter as the actual main star. She played a version of Little Red Riding Hood. Supernatural, and she was also on Joss Whedon's Dr. Horrible's sing-along blog. I don't know if any of you guys know that show. In 2009, Rolling Stone magazine names The Guild as one of the best serial shows on the web. In 2009, she's elected to the Board of Academy of Directors, the Board of Directors for the International Academy of Web Television. Yes, that is actually a thing. The International Academy of Web Television, or the IAWTV, is an advocacy group that was formed in order to, as a think tank, to provide advocacy and spread, evangelize, and to organize the community at large of independent web television creators, such as yourself. You may want to join this prestigious group at some point. And they hold a yearly award ceremony that gives awards, much like the Streamies and the Webbies every year. In 2009, she has 4 Streamy Awards, one for Best Comedy, Best Female Actor, Best Ensemble Comedy Cast, and Audience Choice Award. In 2010, she had 11 nominations and 2 wins, one for directing for Best Comedy, one for writing for Best Comedy. In 2012, she has 6 International Academy of Web Television Awards, Best Comedy Writing, Best Directing for Comedy, Best Female Performance, and Best Website Design. Up to date on Felicia, on the Guild, she has had around 88 million views on YouTube alone. That's not including all of the other platforms like Netflix, Hulu, Amazon, the MSN Network, and Xbox and Zune. Those are also destinations where you can find her content, where she's earning revenue from. And in 2012, Felicia launched a channel called Geek and Sundry, which was part of at that point, YouTube had invested $100 million into premium channels. They made an investment. Google had bought YouTube the year prior, and a year later they decided we're gonna pump $100 million into YouTube creators, and each of them got about $1 million. About 100 of them each got about $1 million to create content, and they were given that money because they had a proven track record, and the reason why they did that was because they wanted to elevate the quality of content on YouTube, because they wanted to start selling more advertising. So better advertising means, better content means that you can attract higher paying advertising customers. And that was the move that YouTube made back in 2012. And Felicia Day was the recipient of one of those awards to the tune of about $1 or $2 million. And she put that money into a channel called Geek and Sundry. We'll talk a little bit about Geek and Sundry in a second. Some of the other recipients of that money was Madonna, Shaquille O'Neal, Amy Poehler, Ashton Kutcher, Rainn Wilson, and Deepak Chopra. Now, how many of you even knew that any of these people had a YouTube channel? Some of you might have known. Many of you might not have known. But the point is that, these guys that got that money, all these stars, did not have a track record on the web, did not know how to use the web the way Felicia Day had been for several years. So she had been doing it in the trenches. So she wound up being way more successful than any of these people on the web. So there's the point I was making earlier about the difference between being successful on the web may not mean that you're successful in traditional media, or vice versa. They're not mutually exclusive, but they're not mutually inherent of each other as well. Felicia Day is arguably a much more successful internet entrepreneur than any of these people. So Geek and Sundry is the channel that she created. Like when we went back earlier and we looked at the Rooster Teeth channel, you saw that Rooster Teeth, they started with Red versus Blue, but they're currently making dozens of shows targeting the same target audience. And that's what Felicia Day did with her money from YouTube to start Geek and Sundry. She started out with about 10 shows and growing. She's up to probably almost, at this point, maybe close to 24 shows on the channel, and all of those shows are now earning revenue as opposed to the one show. So instead of earning revenue with one single show, she's got 10 and growing at least that target the same target audience.
Hey Jorge, this is Christian.
Let's go to her.
And for 2 seconds to let you know that we just hit our hour, and we could go on again for about another 20-30 minutes. Just wanted to let you know where we were on the time.
Perfect. I should be done in about 10, and then we could do Q&A.
Cool.
Awesome. Thank you. All right. So here we have Geek and Sundry, which in some ways resembles the Rooster Teeth channel. They've got their schedule up here. They're putting out content on Mondays and Tuesdays and Thursdays. They're very obvious and very communicative of their schedule, which is very important. Telling your audience what your release schedule is very important, because then they know when to come back and check in for new content. And if we scroll down through her shows, we'll see that she's got a show called Space Janitors. She's got a Halloween werewolf clip. She's got this thing called 8-Bit Haunted Dance Party. And down below, you'll see some other shows, Morganville, which it's targeted for young girls who are into video gaming. Space Janitors, Will Wheaton, the star of The Next Generation. I don't know if you guys remember The Next Generation, Star Trek. He was Leslie Crusher's boy, Ensign Crusher, on the show, but he's a big geek now, and he does a lot of stuff in that world. So having him do a show on a channel was a big win for Felicia. Will Wheaton's show, Will Wheaton's Tabletop, is just basically Will Wheaton playing tabletop games like Monopoly or Dungeons and Dragons and things like that with his friends. It's a half-an-hour show of him playing games with his friends. Co-optitude is Felicia Day and her brother playing video games that they didn't get to play when they were younger. Family Feud, Buffy the Vampire Slayer. I guess these are all video games that they are trying out on the show. And then a bunch of vlogs. And so the point is that she has built a little cottage industry for herself based on this whole target audience. And let's go take a look at her about page. Every channel will have its about page. At the bottom will give you the numbers. So she has about 115 million views. I don't have the math done on that, but that probably comes out to be several hundred thousands of dollars that she's earned since she started 2012. And keep in mind that she gets revenue not just from YouTube, but she has her content being licensed to Netflix, Amazon, Hulu, a bunch of different platforms. So the takeaway from this is that she started with that one show, that one episode that I showed you. That was the whole beginning of her whole entrepreneurial endeavor. It was just that one show, that one episode, and now she's grown into a network. And that's another point I want to make. At some point, you're going to start out with your show, right? But to be really, truly successful, you should be thinking about long-term plans and how you could become a little mini NBC or a little ABC, because that's what Rooster Teeth is, right? If you go to Rooster Teeth, it's a channel, just like NBC is a channel sorry about that. Just like NBC is a channel on traditional television and HBO is a channel on cable, Rooster Teeth is a channel or a network with many shows, right? NBC is a network with many shows. And so is Felicia Day. She is a network with many shows, right? And this might feel or sound daunting, but don't freak you out. The point I'm trying to make is start at the beginning with one show, with one episode or half a dozen episodes, and grow from there, right? But ideally, the end game should be creating a little network for yourself. Anyway, so back to the presentation. We just saw that that number is actually up to 1.5, I thought it was. Oh, so here's the crazy thing. This is the big for Felicia Day. I don't know if you guys have read the news, but Legendary Pictures decided that they want to get into the digital space. And guess whose content and whose channel was purchased by Legendary Films? Felicia Day's. So now she is a stark raving millionaire. I was going to say lunatic, but she's probably a lunatic too at this point. But she is a millionaire. She is in business with Legendary Films. The numbers of her deal were not disclosed to the public. People are surmising that it's at least in the double-digit millions, and that is all from that deal was just recently, but again, I want to emphasize that her whole journey started with that one video that we saw. It was that one video that led to a season, that led to several seasons, that led to a deal with Microsoft, that led to a deal with YouTube, that led to creating a channel with many, many shows, with many, many people working for her to produce those shows. She didn't produce those shows herself. She's got a team of people. And eventually this year sold to Legendary Films. So that's the point I'm trying to make with you guys, that it is accessible, it is doable. You just right strategy and think about what the right kinds of shows are to support that strategy. So Felicia Day has a lot going for her. I think she's a good-looking gal. She's very cute. She's very smart. She's a great writer. She writes very, very well, very sharply, very funnily. She's a good actress. She's a great entrepreneur. She has all these amazing things going for her, but the number one thing that Felicia Day has going for her is that she knows her target audience, and not only does she know her target audience, she is her target audience. She is a geek. She is a video gamer. She herself plays video games. She herself is a comic book geek. She herself is a sci-fi geek. And that's very important because she's created a cottage industry around interests that are very true to her own self. And so she was never faking the funk. You know what I'm saying? She created a whole business around things that she knew there was an audience for, that she was of that audience, so that she came off very authentic. And she knew that audience. So one of the big things that you can ask yourself is what do I love? What subject matter am I interested in that I geek out about? And if you can identify that, that is probably a very good lead towards what you should probably be doing as a show. Because if you love it that much, you're gonna love doing it, and you're gonna need that love to sustain you over the long haul. No one is ever gonna be able to do a show, because it's hard work, without that kind of love, unless you're getting paid millions of dollars from a big studio, which is not gonna happen until you do what Felicia Day did. But that love and that authenticity is very important, because audiences understand that and they resonate with that, and they become a fan of you as much as they become a fan of your work, and that's very, very important. So ask yourself, what is it that I love? Who am I? What target audience am I a part of? What show can I create for that audience? Because I know that audience so well, and I can communicate with that audience so authentically that they're going to come along for the ride with me. It's very important. Who is my target audience? How do I connect with them? And why do I need to identify them? It goes back to what I was just saying earlier. Unless you have the money and the eyeballs of the major studios and the networks like these guys, it's the best way to pinpoint, engage, and grow your audience. And what does audience equal? Eyeballs equals revenue. The more eyeballs you have, the bigger your audience, the more potential earning power you have for your content. So you might be asking yourself, how do I connect with my audience? And here are some ideas. This is not a complete list, but this is what you should be doing. You should be finding where this audience lives online. What are the websites, blogs, Facebook groups, forums, and Twitter accounts where this audience lives? Identify bloggers and writers of those, and group administrators of those destinations, and make friends with them, because they are going to be your advocates to reviewing your content, to rallying your audience, to possibly allowing you to embed your videos on their blogs for traffic. So, and at some point you're going to want to email these editors and bloggers and send them a press release, an announcement about your show. You might want to ask these bloggers and content creators and group admins to do a review of your show, or maybe interview you for your show. Or you might want to, there might be advertising opportunities on these destinations. Or if you're friends with these admins, they'll maybe embed your videos in their streams. You want at the end of the day, you want to engage directly through real conversations in forums and groups, eventually coaxing them to check out your show, join your own social media lists. Like, it's all about relationships, guys. That's what it comes down to. It's all about relationships. Like, I've got this sort of analogy or a little story that I tell sometimes in my classes, and I'm like, okay, so you walk into a party one day somewhere, and you meet someone platonic, just a friend, and you just hit it off, right? And you have a couple drinks, and you're at the end of the night, you're best friends. You've just, like, everything you talked about, you totally relate with. You're like, man, I really like this person. I want to become friends with this person. And you're hugging at the end of the night, and you're exchanging phone numbers. And at the end of the night, this particular person that you met turns to you and says, "Can I borrow $100 from you?" How many people out there would give them that $100 without any qualification? Probably not a lot of people, right? Why? Why would you not want to do that? Because you just met this person. You don't know anything about this person. So what if you just had a good time with this person? You're not giving them $100. To a year later, you have become friends with this person. You have hung out with this person on a regular basis. You've gone to each other's houses. You've met each other's significant others. You've gone on double dates. You attended his sister's bar mitzvah or quinceañera or whatever, right? And you have a what? Over that course of the year, what do you have? You have a relationship. You have a friendship, right? So a year later, that same person turns to you and says, "Hey, man, can I borrow $100? I really need it. And if you give me the $100, this is what I'm going to do with it. I'm going to use it for this, this, and this, and you'll get this in return, this perk in return, right?" Would you give the $100 to that person then? You probably would. And why is that? Because you've built a relationship with them, right? You've gotten to know them. You've seen their struggle. You understand who they are and what they're trying to do. And it's the same concept behind crowdfunding. What I was just describing was crowdfunding, but also it's the same concept behind building your audience, right? So if you spent a year or 6 months building an audience and becoming friends with these people and engaging them, when it's time to launch your show, they're invested in you. And that's very important. Why? Because they have a relationship with you. So one of the important things I want to point out is like that. Yes, that's a lot of work. It's a lot I can keep up with my social media, my own personal social media. How am I going to keep up and grow a social media presence for my audience for my show? Good question. What I recommend to people to do is when you're building your teams to do a web show and you're picking producers to work with, right? You're not going to do this. You never do anything media related by yourself. You usually build a team, right? Whether it's feature film, whether it's a short film, whether it's the web, whatever. You build a team, right? You have 1 or 2 or 3 people that you surround yourself with, that you partner with, that are invested in the project one way or another, and they're there for the long haul to help you execute this, right? One of those people, one of those producers should be a social media producer. That is one of the secret sauces to creating a successful web series is not only having producers that will help you shoot the stuff, but having a producer whose sole function within the team is to engage the audience and give you strategies on how to engage the audience. So you want to bring someone on a team that has that experience. And as you're strategizing your show, and as you're building your show, and as you're shooting your show, that person is part of those conversations so that you're creating a piece of content that you know will work well through social media avenues. Maybe you want to tell part of the story through Twitter or Facebook. Maybe you want to do a transmedia project where the story, your characters are actually extending out into those platforms in character. That's part of what a social media producer does. They help you figure out how to do that, how to bake that into your idea as you're creating it, as you're shooting it. As you're shooting it, you want to be shooting behind-the-scenes footage, stills and clips that you could put up through your social media avenues in order to evangelize the show before you even ever launch it. It's very important. You want a social media expert as part of your producing team. Okay, so a word of advice. We're almost done. A couple of things I want to leave you with is that Be sincere with your content. Love what you're doing because an audience will resonate with that. Look at what Felicia Day did. Look at what Rooster Teeth did. They were geeks, and they were lovingly creating content for other geeks. Because fans could smell a fake away, they could tell if you're faking the funk. They just won't resonate. They just won't respond. But if you're one of them, they'll love you for it because they know you're making it with a lot of love, and that love goes a long way, believe it or not. Felicia Day really is a geek at heart. She's a great poster child and case study for exactly this thing that I'm talking about. And Rooster Teeth, the guys that created Red vs. Blue, the first video you watched, really do love machinima, the idea of making that content that way, creating content, creating existing content and overdubbing vocals. That's a machinima. They really do love doing that. And they really do love gaming. So it was a perfect combination for them, right? They were sincere. They were part of that audience. So that's very important for you to think about. Ask yourself not only who the target audience is, but if you can identify yourself as a member of a target audience, that's gold. That's gold. So think about that. All right, guys, that's it for me for now for this. I think, Christian, if we want to open up the platform for questions.
Great. So we only have about 15 minutes, but remember, guys, this is being recorded, and also Jorge will be giving the second part of his presentation next week. And the first question we have here is a platform question.
Okay.
Malkia wants to know, if I want to find another platform for my show other than YouTube, what are some other contenders? I know they're not close, but still interested in knowing.
Absolutely. Okay, so you should know one thing before you do that YouTube comprises 70% of the market share. They have 70% of the audience that is consuming video online views it on YouTube. YouTube, after Google, is the second biggest search engine on the planet. Like, people use it to search stuff almost as much as they do Google. So just keep that in mind. Vimeo is the platform. They comprise 10% of the market share. 10%. After that, everything else, the rest of the 20% is a mixture of everything else. But some of the big ones that you should look into are Blip TV, and I don't have the list in front of me, but I will share my email address, and if you want to email me, I have a list somewhere on my computer that is much more extensive than that. But you can also do a search. One of the great resources for this kind of information is a site called Reel SEO, REEL SEO, and Google video distribution platforms or search video distribution platforms on Reel SEO. And the article that I was planning on sending you is in there somewhere. But I'll give you my email address, and you guys can email me directly if you can't find it. And there's a whole list. They have lists of what the big contenders are. But honestly, if YouTube is not part of your plan, you're missing out on 70% of the market share. So you should start with YouTube and grow from there. YouTube and Vimeo and Blip TV are the top three.
Cool. And Maddie wants to know if there's any control you may have on YouTube about the kind of advertising that displays on your channel.
That might be changing. I know that, and I know that's a huge issue because that was something that a lot of creators have complained about, and I think they're starting to do something to address that. I think currently you don't have much control. I think you can. I think you might be able to control the verticals. Like if you want health or beauty, if you want cars, the car market, or if you want sports. I believe you have the ability to do it on that level, but they're trying to change it and make it a little bit more robust. But unfortunately, you don't have that much control. It's basically what YouTube thinks your channel, Well, basically YouTube bases it on the kind of content you're making. So if you're making a food-related show, they're going to try to pump content or advertising against that makes sense for that audience. Does that make sense?
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. Uh, and then the next question, Faith wants to know about Rooster Teeth and the Red and Blue project. How did they get around the copyright infringement for repurposing that content?
Yeah. Yes, great question. They actually got busted. They got busted by the guys that made Halo, and they were luckily enough to create a deal with them. They saw the power. The guys at Halo said to them, "Hey, that's our content. What are you doing?" But they basically were able to see the huge amount of numbers that they were pulling in, and so they partnered with Rooster Teeth, and actually. Halo allows them to do it now. I think they might take a little licensing fee as part of that, but Halo at this point sees it as free advertising for them. And in fact, one of the releases of Halo about 2 or 3 years ago included a extended content DVD with the video game that had a bunch of seasons of Red versus Blue on it. So they got lucky. But there are some laws out there regarding fair use, but YouTube is getting tighter and tighter with those criteria, so it's getting harder and harder to do that. I don't know if I would think that I'd be very surprised if Rooster Teeth would be able to get away with that today if they started from scratch. So that's the answer that I have for that one.
And guys, we could only really get to one more question, so I'll keep it on the YouTube. But do remember, Jorge will be on again next week, and I think he would be thrilled to get a chance to deal with issues like, nonfiction series, and also talk a little bit more about additional brainstorming for target audiences. But the last question we have here is from Maddie. Maybe we'll take Carol's question, actually, since Maddie, you got one already. The question is, how do you test the concept, and what are some guidelines or tips for creating nonfiction series?
Nonfiction series. So how do you test how do you test the
I guess, how do you find the right, how do you find, I guess, metrics to compare to, and also, I guess, do the same sort of gamer audience research that you would for nonfiction?
Yeah, sure. For nonfiction, I mean, what I'm going to say right now probably goes for nonfiction and fiction. You have to go out there and do the research first of all. It's some of it is just pop cultural and zeitgeisty. Like without doing any research, I know there's probably a lot of sports fans out there in the world, right? So you start with that. That's one thing. It's a very soft tactic. Another soft tactic is ask yourself what you're interested in. That's and start looking for what's online, right? That's the soft stuff, right? But the hard tactics are to go out and Google those topics and see what kind of results you get back, right? See what kind of, if you Google, wine aficionados or wine tasting or sommeliers or something along those lines because you want to make a show about wine tasting, Google those keywords and see what kind of results you get back. If you get hundreds of hits of websites, that's a good sign, right? Then the other thing to do is to do, Google has a keyword search, a keyword tool that's part of its Google Analytics. I don't know if anyone out there has ever used Google Analytics, but Google has this tool called Google Analytics that helps you not only get analytics on the traffic of your website, but it also helps you do research on keywords, right? And it'll tell you how many hits a keyword will get. So, if you're interested in doing a show for horror fans and you Google the word vampires and it gets 30,000 returns, and if you do a keyword search on werewolves and it gets 50,000 returns, and if you do a keyword search on mermaids and you get 800,000 returns, guess what? Mermaids is probably a good one, and you're going to go after and do mermaids, right? So one of the hard strategies is to use that tool. So just Google Google Analytics or Google keyword tool, search tool, I think it's called. That's a really good way to do it. And it's market research. It's like you would do it for any other business endeavor. It's a lot of searching and seeing what's already out there and seeing what kind of hits these websites are getting. There's a lot of tools out there that will help you see what kind of activity these websites are amassing. I mean, if you do a Twitter search on sommelier's wine tasting and you find a Twitter feed where this one Twitter account has 1 million followers, guess what? That's a good sign, right? So that's all market research that you're doing, and you need to amass that market research to find out what kind of activity is surrounding these subject matters, but also if you decide to do a show about wine tasting and you have all that intelligence and you have all those websites, those are also the websites and Twitter feeds and Facebook accounts that you're going to be making relationships with, right? Social media relationships. I hope that helps. I think the best, I mean, you have to devise your own strategy for doing your own research, but the best tool that I can give you is Google keywords.
Cool. Thank you so much, Jorge. That's been really helpful. Lots of useful information in this session. We look forward to next week's session, and thank you guys for showing up today. You can RSVP for that next session online at blackpublicmedia.org. But if you have 2 minutes, please do take some time to fill out our survey. The link is in the window right there, and we'll be making this recording available after this session. Thanks again, Jorge. Very great session.
Yep, you're welcome.